commemorated the 30th year since the passing of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and 30 has its significance, especially in relation to the final push, the energy that Rebbe put in, especially the last couple of years, and what he emphasized the most. And what is that? We know that the Rebbe emphasized the belief in the imminent arrival of Mashiach. Now it's 30 years later, but there's a significance here, interesting point. There is the commentary called the Kli Yakar. He's from the 17th century commentary on the Torah. And he asks the following question. This is something I've shared in the past, but being it's 30 years, it's very significant today. He asks, the Torah says that the Jewish people were in Egypt for 430 years. And that's strange because when God told Abraham that his children will be slaves in the land of theirs and theirs, it says 400 years. So what's this 430? So the Kli Yakar says the following. When they received the message that the redemption is on hand, most Jews were not ready to leave. Most Jews did not believe. It took 30 years for 20% of the Jewish people to be ready to leave, and that's when we had the redemption. So the 30 years, so to speak, were tacked on to the original plan of 400 years, so that you have someone who's ready to go. And after the 30 years, then we had 20%, which was 2.5 million Jews or so, willing to leave Egypt. And this is consistent with a explanation the Rebbe gives to a strange medrash. The medrash says that it says v'chamushim olu bnei Yisrael miMitzrayim. The Jewish people went out of Egypt chamushim. So it gives two interpretations of what that means. One is they went out with arms. The other is that only one. There's three opinions in the other. One is that only 20% were left. Another is that only 2% left. Another is that 0.2% left. The Rebbe asked, that makes no sense. If you say 0.2%, for example, we're talking about there would have been 1.2 billion Jews. Why 1.2 billion? Because we know there were 600,000 men between 20 and 60. Double that to women, so that's 1.2. And double that probably between 0 to 20 and 60 and over. It's probably double that again. So we're talking about 2.5 million Jews. Well, if 2.5 million Jews is 20%, so it's 20% of some 12 million, etc. If it's 2%, then it's like 120 million. And if it's 0.2%, then it's like 1.2 billion, which seems absolutely ridiculous. Says the Rebbe means something a little bit different. What happened was that when there was the message that we're going out of Egypt, only 0.2% accepted it and believed in it. These 0.2% then shared the message with everyone else, and it went from 0.2 to 2. And they shared with message with everyone else, and it went from 2 to 20. And then they shared the message with everyone else, and actually all Jews then left Egypt, according to this explanation. And therefore we go with the interpretation that Chamusha means with arms. So, today we're 30 days since the passing of the Rebbe, where the message that the Rebbe gave us that Mashiach is imminent. At that time, I was around then. I was already on Shlichus then. And I saw how difficult it was to give this message to people. No one believed. Even religious Jews thought Mashiach was something so foreign and so removed from them. Today, there isn't an observant Jew anywhere, really, who doesn't have this sense that Mashiach's arrival is imminent. So we see that it took 30 years for the Rebbe's message of the belief in the imminent arrival of Mashiach to actually percolate and to be accepted and received by the Jewish people. And so now is high time for the Rebbe's push and message that the arrival of Mashiach is imminent to be fulfilled. Now that we are 30 years, just as it says, like the days you went out of Egypt, I will show you wonders, now is the time for this to be actualized, for us all to experience this final redemption. Indeed, the Kli Yakar says that when the Torah speaks about the Jewish people, how long they were in Egypt, it says that the settlement of the Jewish people in Egypt, it uses the word settled. And he says the reason that they didn't want to leave because they felt settled. They should have been there as they should have been there in a way of strangers, feeling that this is not our place. But because they felt settled in Egypt, that was the issue of why it took 30 years for them to be willing to leave. Well, I think what's happened, especially since October 7th, is that those who felt settled, as I've messaged in previous messages, people have felt settled in their life. But now you can't rely on anyone. There's no settlement. You can't rely on higher education, can't rely on law, you can't rely on medicine, can't rely on politics, you can't rely on media. You can't rely on science, you can't rely on anything that we placed our belief and faith in has proven to be false, something that we cannot rely on. And we can only rely on Hashem and Torah and the coming of Mashiach. And that's what we need to put our faith in. And let's hope and pray that it happens imminently. Shabbos.